Hi everyone, Sandra Duran Wilson here, and welcome to this week's episode of Mixed Media Soul Sparks, where I bring you painting techniques, mixed media ideas, studio tips, and sometimes even some inspirational exercises. I hope that these ideas can spark something bigger in you and have you exploring different ways that you make your art. Today I want to share with you a fun technique that I've explored in one of my earlier books, and it's using golden tar gel, or Liquitex calls it string gel. And we're going to be using rice paper to create kind of a faux batik look. And the rice papers, there are many different kinds. I have this pad of different rice paper, and you can also get it in rolls. So just pick a rice paper that you can find and try that. The other thing we're going to be using is the tar gel or the string gel. You're going to need a palette knife and some stencils. I've got a piece of plastic here that I'm going to put the rice paper on top of. And what I'm going to do is I'm creating these papers. I've got some already made. And I'm going to be using a stencil. And I'm going to put the stencil on top of the rice paper. And let's kind of get this lined up so I've got everything. Okay. Now my stencil is a little messed up there, so I think I'll flip it over. There we go. That's better. And the tar gel and a palette knife. Tar gel or string gel is got this very interesting type of viscosity. It's kind of stringy. That's why they call it string gel. But the reason I'm using it for this is because it is the clearest medium. So when it dries, it's going to become kind of like glass on the paper. Not glass, but it's going to create, oops, you saw my knife just went under the stencil. You don't want to do that. Once you get some of this on, it's going to hold that stencil on the paper. So the first step is the most difficult. Here my stencil is pulling up slightly there, so I just want to be careful that I don't put my knife underneath there again. Now you don't have to cover the entire piece of paper. Just do as much as you like. I'll probably just do this much. One of the important parts of this, as soon as you finish doing this, you're going to need to take this stencil and clean it off in the sink, because if you leave the gel on there, it's going to ruin your stencil. So here's the big thing, is now you peel, well, you try to, you peel this off of your paper, and it doesn't look like much in the beginning. And get this put into the sink and wash that off. Now, it's still white because the gel is white when it's wet, but it's going to dry clear. So let me just show you now what the dried one looks like. And this is the one that I did earlier. So you can see that it's a big difference. Let me get a piece to, this is a painted background. This is what I'm going to be putting it on, but I just want to give you an idea of how that dry gel goes clear. So I want to paint this first before I adhere it to that. So again, just to go over this, you're going to put your paper on top of a piece of plastic and put your stencil on top, and then use your knife to put the tar gel through there. I like to leave it on this plastic to dry, because if I take this and I put it onto paper, it may want to stick. So keep it on that. You see I have lots of different stencils here. The one I just used is from Stencil Girl. I seem to get a lot of questions on my stencils, so I discovered in answering that Stencil Girl's stencils are a different shape than the square. The square ones are from Crafter's Workshop, and the more rectangular ones are from Stencil Girl. Now I'm going to take and paint this. And what I have discovered in painting this is that sometimes the viscosity of the paint you're going to use makes a difference. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I take this, I'm just going to hold it. That paint goes into the paper. But where the gel is, I can wipe it off. So do you see that the paper holds the color? Isn't that fun? So just like in Batik, when you use wax on fabric, the wax acts as the resist. So then you dye your fabric, and then the dye doesn't go in where the wax is. So then you take the wax off. So that's why I call this kind of a faux batik process. Now, if I were using a heavy paint, it would have difficulty getting into the papers. So if you have a heavy body paint, just dilute it with a bit of water. And then I can come back and wipe some of this off. And you can use different colors. You don't have to use all the same color. I'm just going to use up this paint here. So let's say you start to put some paint on and it's too thick. It's not doing what you want it to do. You could always come in with a little bit of water and spray it onto that. You know, here it really absorbed a lot of paint, so I can spray some water and move some of that over. Now, you can let this dry and even look at it from different sides, because you might like it better on the back side than on the front side. I can see that it might need a little more paint right there, or I can come in with a different color. I'm just going to add a little white. And see how this might affect my colors. When this is dry, I'm going to adhere it to this brightly colored background. And where the tar gel or the string gel is dry, then it's going to become very clear. But here's the difference, is you have to paint the paper with something. If you want it to stay white, you can paint it with the white paint. If you want to add a color. However, if you don't paint it, when you go to adhere it, it's going to kind of all go clear. So you do have to add some color. I'm going to be using a gloss medium to adhere the paper, and we're going to see what happens. And the reason I left that blank is because I want to demonstrate that to you. So I'm just going to do a quick spread of the gloss. And I'm going to put this on here to where we can see both the color and the non-color. See, it kind of disappears. You can see it slightly. But that's what I'm talking about, that the gloss, the paper goes clear. So you need to have a little bit of paint on it for it to really show up. Now this is still wet, so it's not going to be as dynamic as when this gloss dries. I'll put a little more under here. And I say to use gloss, don't use matte, because gloss is going to be the clearest, and that's what you're hoping for, is to be able to see through this paper. So let me just show you one that is finished and how it's going to look when it's dry. The other thing you want to make sure you consider are the color values. So if you want to put a different color on that, if I would have painted this more of this like pink color, it wouldn't showed up as well as the blue. So you need a complementary color or an opposite color, something with higher contrast. Now here's a piece that's finished. So the background was this orange and the green. You can even see some of the writing behind here. The paper was painted and with the light blue, and then it was adhered. So this is a great way to get this kind of faux batik look. There's really no other way to quite get it. I mean, you could put gel directly through a stencil, but you're not going to get this same kind of veiling type of effect. So that is a really great way to get a faux batik look. This is another stencil that I used. You can see this is a bright background. Now if I wanted to put the pink on here, it might show up. This is another way if you don't want to use a stencil. What I used was just the tar gel itself. And let me just show you that really quick. Because when you take it out, you can see how it's going to want to stay on the knife. It's almost like you can draw with it. The slower you move, the thicker your line, or if you start to run out of it, you just pick some more up. Now this, you can see that it starts to flatten out as it dries. So don't go too thick, because then it's going to flatten out. So when this dries, you do the same thing. You paint the paper and then you adhere it to your background. Tar gel by Golden or string gel by other paint companies has this unique quality. One little thing to be careful of, you don't want to mix it up, because what happens if you mix it up, it breaks that ability for it to be string-like. So if you mixed it up, if you forgot and you mixed it up, let it sit for about an hour, and then that quality will return. So this has been Faux Batik, and if you like these ideas, please check out the website for some instant classes that you can take, or you might be interested in the Awakening Your Creative Soul quarterly classes too. So I hope you find some inspiration here, and thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Join the community and share your creations on social. Use the hashtag #MixedMediaSoulSparks. I look forward to seeing your comments in the comment section.